Money doesn't just live in your wallet, it lives in your mind. It shapes how people see themselves, how they judge others, and how safe or anxious they feel, often without realizing why. What's surprising is that nearly 2,000 years ago, Jesus Christ spoke about money in a way that feels almost modern, not like a preacher, not like a moral enforcer, but like someone who deeply understood how the human mind works. This video is not about belief. It's not about religion, and it's not about what anyone should or shouldn't do. This is an educational exploration of how Jesus observed human psychology around wealth, long before psychology had names for these patterns. If you've ever wondered why wealth creates stress instead of peace, why money feels personal, or why enough never feels enough, stay with me. One thing many people don't realize is this: Jesus spoke about money frequently, not because money was evil, but because money was psychologically revealing. He lived in a time without banks, stock markets, or credit scores, yet he noticed something timeless. When money enters the picture, people's true motivations come out: fear, pride, control, insecurity, attachment. Modern psychology agrees. Money acts as a magnifier. It doesn't create traits, it exposes them. Jesus wasn't focused on wealth itself. He was focused on what wealth does to the human mind. From a psychological standpoint, humans crave one thing deeply: security. Money often becomes a symbolic substitute for that feeling. Jesus observed that people didn't trust money because it worked. They trusted it because it felt stable. Psychology now calls this emotional substitution, when an external object is used to regulate internal fear. That explains why people with more money still feel unsafe. Wealth increases anxiety about loss. Financial gain doesn't end worry. Jesus noticed that when people rely on money for emotional safety, the mind never truly rests. The object meant to calm fear becomes the source of it. Have you ever noticed how financial loss feels personal? That's because money rarely stays external. The human mind quietly merges money with self-worth, status, identity. Jesus spoke as if he understood this internal fusion. When wealth increases, ego expands. When wealth decreases, identity feels threatened. Modern psychology confirms this. When identity is tied to resources, loss feels like loss of self, not just numbers. Jesus wasn't observing economics. He was observing identity psychology. One of the most famous ideas attributed to Jesus involves divided loyalty. From a psychological perspective, this describes cognitive conflict. The human mind struggles when two value systems compete: meaning versus status, purpose versus accumulation, inner values versus external validation. Psychology shows that unresolved value conflict produces chronic stress, anxiety, emotional exhaustion. Jesus wasn't issuing a rule. He was describing a mental limitation. The mind cannot peacefully serve competing definitions of success. Here's one of the sharpest psychological insights Jesus seemed to understand. Greed almost never feels like greed. It disguises itself as responsibility, planning, wanting security, not wanting to fall behind. Modern behavioral psychology shows the same pattern. The brain reframes desire as necessity to protect self-image. Jesus spoke about greed indirectly because he understood something critical. If people recognized greed easily, it wouldn't be powerful. Jesus often linked money to attention and focus. Psychology confirms this. What captures attention slowly reshapes identity. Money is measurable, comparable, visible. That makes it psychologically addictive, not chemically but cognitively. Jesus recognized that what the mind constantly tracks eventually becomes what the heart values, not intentionally. Gradually, modern psychology uses the term hedonic adaptation. It means the mind quickly adjusts to improved conditions, returning satisfaction back to baseline. Jesus observed this long before it had a name. The desire for more doesn't end discomfort, it resets it. That's why accumulation rarely produces peace, and why anxiety often grows with wealth. Another pattern Jesus appeared to understand was the illusion of control. Money creates the feeling of control in an uncertain world. Psychology confirms this. Humans overvalue anything that appears to reduce uncertainty. But illusion and reality aren't the same. The more people rely on money to control uncertainty, the more fragile their sense of stability becomes. These observations feel uncomfortable because they challenge modern systems built on constant desire, endless comparison, identity through achievement. Jesus' insights disrupt that loop, not with commands but with exposure. They force reflection instead of consumption, and the mind resists that. Jesus didn't describe money as the enemy. He described the human mind's relationship with it. How fear hides inside comfort, how identity hides inside numbers, how control hides inside accumulation. These aren't religious ideas. They're psychological observations. Timeless, human, still relevant. If this video made you pause, even briefly, if it made you reflect rather than react, then this channel is for you. Here, we don't tell you what to believe. We explore how the human mind works beneath the surface. Subscribe for thoughtful conversations about money, meaning, and psychology without pressure, without noise. And if this gave you clarity, share it with someone who might need that quiet moment too. Because understanding the mind is often the first step toward understanding ourselves.